Everyone needs a home, be it football clubs, an abandoned puppy, or your mum when her OnlyFans account runs dry and she can't pay the mortgage. Point is, home field advantage is a massive thing in football, be it Liverpool with Anfield, Rangers with the Ibrox, and less said about Tottenham and their stadium the better. Many sides have remained in their spiritual homes over the years, but not all of them have. Welcome to Good Sport Reviews. My name is Lewis, and this is 10 football grounds that no longer exist. And if you click subscribe, then you'll always have a home round here on the channel with new videos coming out all the time. Number 10, Highbury. It's number 10 because, let's face it, every man and their mum knows about Arsenal's move from Highbury to the Emirates in 2006. Highbury is viewed by many as one of the most beautiful grounds in the English game, with the iconic and majestic entrance, marble glazed corridors with a certain Ian Wright was once caught skating on by Arsene Wenger, and a ground which boasted a fantastic atmosphere, bearing witness to some of the greatest moments in Premier League history. So why did they move? Well, following their success in the 1990s and early 2000s, every single home game was filled to capacity, with the club boasting one of the largest fan bases in England, and the need for expansion was obvious to see. Following the move to the Emirates, the stadium was auctioned off with parts of the pitch, goalposts, and even George Graham's desk being sold to bidders, and the historic ground was converted into apartments and flats, which currently house 711 properties, and it's renamed the Highbury Square. Number 9, Roker Park. When you think of Sunderland, your mind may go to two things: the Stadium of Light and Asamoah Gyan. But what people may not know is that the Stadium of Light is Sunderland's 8th home ground since their founding in 1879. The one we're going to focus on for this list is Roker Park, the club's last home before their move to the Stadium of Light. The club spent 99 years at the ground, with their stint lasting from the 10th of September 1898 up until their last game at the stadium in the 3-0 win over Everton on the 3rd of May 1997. During this time, the club saw many records, including their highest ever home attendance, with 75,118 fans attending a match against Derby County in 1933, and was also the site of the club's first European home game when they played Vassos SC in the Cup Winners' Cup. Sadly, the ground was far too confined for expansion, and this led to then chairman Bob Murray looking at relocation. And while the initial plan was for the side to move into a newly built 48,000 capacity stadium, this was swiftly rejected by Nissan due to their factory being nearby, and eventually the side moved to the Stadium of Light. Following Sunderland's departure, the ground was demolished and built into a housing estate, with the nearby street names being based on the iconic ground. Number 8, the Athletic Ground. Like most football clubs in the 19th century, the Athletic Ground was once home to Loughborough FC, was also used for cricket matches. That was until 1886, when the football side moved in and made it a home for the beautiful game. The pitch was boasted a pavilion in the northern corner, and a grandstand on the southern touchline saw Loughborough elected into the Football League's second division in 1895, with their first league match at the ground being a 3-3 draw with Newton Heath, and it later saw controversy with crowd trouble during a match against Walsall on the 10th of October 1896, resulting in the ground being closed for several games, and later down the line, further fan rowdiness led to another closure between the 23rd of January and the 6th of February 1899. Following Loughborough being voted out of the league post the 1899-1900 season, a campaign by the way in which they finished 18th, picking up only one win, the ground was deemed surplus to requirements, and with the development of other grounds in the division, it was demolished in 1908 with, surprise surprise, a housing estate being built on top of it. Number 7, Bank Street. Fans nowadays complain a lot about the issues surrounding Old Trafford, and rightfully so, as the home to some of football's greatest moments is in desperate need of some TLC, but in comparison to Manchester United's previous home, Bank Street, it certainly could be worse. Located in the suburb of Clayton in Manchester, Bank Street played host to the 13-time Premier League champions from 1893 until their departure in 1910, and went through many renovations during its period. At the start of life at the ground, it was without stands. That was until the start of the 1893-94 season, where two had been built, one of which spanned the full length of the pitch, and the other was built behind the goal in the Bradford end. Back when Manchester United were known as Newton Heath, the club didn't enjoy great playing conditions, with one match in particular against Walsall Town Swifts resulting in the club saying they were playing in a toxic waste dump, and they lodged an official complaint about this which resulted in their 14-0 loss being replayed and being lowered to a 9-0 loss because of this. Following Manchester United's first league title in 1908 and the FA Cup success the later year, it was decided that Bank Street was too small for the ambition of the club, and they officially moved into Old Trafford after a final 5-0 victory against Tottenham Hotspur on the 22nd of January 1910, and it came at the perfect time, as 1 week later the roof of the grandstand fell off and blew across the road, landing on some nearby houses, and the ground has since been demolished and is currently occupied by a BMX indoor arena with just a red plaque on it to commemorate its existence. Number 6, the Dell. Constructed in 1896 by George Thomas, the Dell is a historically significant ground in the timeline of English football for many reasons. Opening officially in 1898, the ground will go on to be the home of Southampton Football Club until their departure in 2001, and it also hosted an international match in the 1901 British Home Championship when England defeated Ireland 3-0. Fast forward 40 years and the ground will go through an incredible amount of turmoil, as during World War II, a German bomb would land on the stadium, creating an 18-foot crater in the Milton Road penalty area, and following this, the side had to play the remaining fixtures of that season away from home. It also suffered major fires during the war, which would cause major damage to the West Stand, and the ground also became the first English ground to have permanent floodlighting installed, with the first game being played under the lights coming on the 31st of October 1950 in a friendly match against Bournemouth and Boscombe Athletic. Sadly, with a capacity of just 15,000, making it the smallest top-level football ground, Southampton decided it was time to move on, and in 2001 they made the historic move to St Mary's, with the Dell being demolished soon after and having its seats and pitch stripped by fans, with a housing estate being built on top of the former home of the Saints. Number 5, the Old Den. In their 139-year history, Millwall, formerly known as Millwall Athletic, have taken residence in 6 grounds, ranging from the 9-year stint at North Greenwich right up to their current ground, the Den, which possesses one of the most electric atmospheres in English football. But before they found their way there, they spent 83 years in the ground now known as the Old Den. After moving from the previously mentioned North Greenwich, Millwall achieved decent levels of success, including winning the Football League trophy in 1983 and winning the second division as champions in 1988, all while at their fortress of a home ground in which they scored 83 goals during the 1920-21 seasons just there alone. The ground would suffer some damage during the Second World War as a bomb dropped during the Blitz landed directly on the ground on the 19th of April 1943, which resulted in a fire that would destroy the main stand of the pitch, and by the late 1970s the ground had fallen into disrepair, with the quality of the pitch itself being called into question and the stands falling apart, with the club unable to build up the funds due to their Division 3 status. 1 year on from their 1990 Division 1 relegation, however, they were moved to the Senegal fields nearby, with their new stadium being renamed the Den and the old Den being demolished and turned into a housing development. Number 4, Watling Street. The San Siro had AC and Inter Milan play there. Watling Street had Dartford and Maidstone United. I'll let you decide which is the more important spot in history. Opened in 1921, Watling Street was a very modest home ground with only one main stand to seat fans in, while the rest of the spectators had to use the banking around the pitch to watch the match. After the original stand burnt down in 1926, a bigger 1,000 capacity stand was built in its place, and soon terracing was built behind the ground's southern goal. In 1947, following the end of World War II, just a few years earlier, Dartford FC enjoyed solitude at their home ground, winning multiple league titles in a magnitude of different divisions. This was until 1988, when Maidstone United were given permission to play their home games at the ground, following the club's sale of their athletic ground to MFI that year, and following their promotion to the 4th division of the Football League shortly after. The ground saw its first ever league match against Maidstone beat Scarborough 4-1 in front of 3,372 fans. However, things would soon end due to financial problems and dwindling attendance figures. Maidstone soon folded, and this resulted in Dartford also going under, as Maidstone's ground improvements were sold on to Dartford for around £500,000, which pushed the club into financial ruin, and the ground was demolished shortly after. Number 3, White Hart Lane. While it's easy to poke fun at Tottenham for their recent trophy drought, multitude of different managers, and more big name leaving the clubs than anyone, you can't make fun of their home grounds, as they've boasted some of the best and most historically significant in England. White Hart Lane was constructed back in 1898, opening the following year in September, and from then on it became the home ground of the Lily Whites, hosting famous moments like the club's first game at the Lane in a 4-1 victory over Notts County, their first ever European Cup game in an 8-1 win over Gornik Zabrze, and many incredible North London derbies, with world-class players like Jimmy Greaves, Harry Kane, Gareth Bale and Paul Gascoigne all enjoying the spoils of life at Tottenham. Just ignore Kane's trophy drought, that doesn't really matter. However, in order to compete with the expansion of other clubs like Arsenal, who'd moved to the Emirates, and Man City, who'd moved to the Etihad, talks developed around the club about expansion or even moving to a new ground. And after a proposed move to the 2012 Olympic Stadium fell through, with West Ham winning the process instead, the club simply built a new home called the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And following the move there in 2019, White Hart Lane was demolished, with the ground that boasted one of the smallest pitches in the Premier League becoming just another memory in English football history. Number 2, Canal Street. Runcorn FC were a club that went through a lot of turbulence during their existence, and the same can be said for their home ground, Canal Street. After becoming home to the football club in 1918, the team went on an adventure of sorts, achieving several promotions during its lifespan, as well as reaching the final of the FA Trophy in 1986. And while that sounds great, the ground was suffering majorly. In the 1993-94 season, a perimeter wall fell down during a cup game against Hull City after the match attracted more fans than usual. The roof blew off due to strong winds at a later date, and the main strand at one point was even destroyed by a fire, and this crippled the club financially, following their first ever relegation in 1996. Following this, the club sold Canal Street ground and moved to the Halton Stadium in Wales, which would be only their second of the 4 home grounds they would soon have. As for Canal Street, it was sold to developers following the move and was eventually demolished and turned into a housing development. And number 1, the Boleyn. There are a few stadiums I haven't mentioned, and they will be put in a separate video, but I couldn't end this list any other way than by talking about Upton Park, aka the Boleyn, one of the most famous grounds in English football. Opening in 1904 after West Ham took up tenancy from local club Oldcastle Swifts, the home ground of the Irons saw many memorable players venture through its doors, and many changes happen through its lifespan. Like many grounds on this list, the pitch would suffer during World War II when a V1 flying bomb landed on the southwest corner of the pitch, meaning West Ham had to play at multiple other grounds while repairs took place, which did not actually affect performances, as the club won 9 consecutive matches along the way. Plans were put into place to expand the stadium in the mid-2000s, but these were scrapped, and as early as 2006 there were discussions about moving to the Olympic Stadium following the 2012 games, and this eventually happened, with the club's final game of the Boleyn coming at the end of the 2015-16 season when they pulled off a historic 3-2 win against European chasing Manchester. This was the 2,398th match played at Upton Park, and despite some fan violence at the end due to a pitch invasion, it couldn't take away from the history of the club. It was demolished in 2016, replaced by housing properties as well as retail development, and it stands as a reminder to one of the most famous sites in English football history, once graced by the likes of Bobby Moore, Geoff Hurst, and of course, Andy Carroll. And that is our list. If you are new around here, please make sure to click like and subscribe. Let me know any stadiums you want to see mentioned in the next video down in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.